You're looking at Caleb Williams, a Heisman Trophy recipient, a former #1 overall draft selection, and arguably one of the most anticipated rookies this league has ever witnessed. And now, only in his second year, he's already being hailed as one of the most dependable players in the NFL when everything is on the line. But even that description doesn't do him justice. Take a look at this chart, which breaks down every quarterback's fourth quarter comebacks from the 2025 season. The higher up and to the left a player is, the more comebacks they orchestrated. The very best quarterbacks in the league typically manage about 3 or 4 in a single season, and that's already seen as an incredible feat. You can see legends like Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, and Baker Mayfield all grouped together in that area. These are established veterans who have been delivering in the clutch for years. Bo Nix pulled off 5 comebacks this year, which is a wild outlier. Justin Herbert managed to get 3. You can find Daniel Jones and Bryce Young sprinkled throughout the chart, each with their own game-winning drives. For the vast majority of these comebacks, the quarterback has 3, 4, or even 5 minutes to make something happen. It's still a huge accomplishment, but they have some breathing room. Now, find Caleb Williams. He's in a universe all by himself, completely isolated in the top left corner. He led 6 fourth quarter comebacks during the 2025 season, and every last one of them occurred when there were 2 minutes or less left in the entire game. Not a single comeback started with 3 minutes to go, not one with 4. All 6 happened with 2 minutes or less on that clock, meaning he had 1 opportunity and absolutely 0 room for error. He did it against the Raiders, he engineered a comeback against Washington, he clawed back a victory against Cincinnati in an insane 47-42 barn burner, he mounted a comeback against the Giants, then another against Minnesota, and another against the Packers in Week 15 that went to overtime. And you know what happened next? Another comeback. By the season's end, it started to feel inevitable. Oh, the Bears are losing with 2 minutes left? Yeah, Caleb's got it handled. That is not how a second-year quarterback is supposed to perform. Honestly, that kind of poise isn't normal for anyone. But the story gets even more unbelievable from here, because that chart only reflects the regular season. In his very first playoff appearance, on wildcard weekend against Green Bay of all teams, the Bears found themselves down 27-21 late in the game. Chicago's odds of winning plummeted to just 9%. And then, Caleb Williams did it again. His 7th comeback victory if you count the postseason. He found DJ Moore for the decisive touchdown with only 1 minute and 43 seconds remaining. Final score, 31-27. He passed for 361 yards, the highest total for a quarterback in their playoff debut since Matthew Stafford back in 2011. 7 fourth quarter comebacks in 2025, every single one with the clock under 2 minutes. That isn't just being clutch, it's a level of performance we have literally never witnessed before in the history of the NFL. To claim that Drake Maye had a good season would be a massive understatement. Here's another second-year quarterback who shattered every expectation, guiding New England to a 14-3 record and their first AFC title appearance since 2019. But it's only when you map out his efficiency metrics on a graph that you begin to grasp how truly monumental his 2025 campaign was. Down near the bottom, you have a group of solid quarterbacks who had respectable seasons. Aaron Rodgers is sitting at 94.8, Baker Mayfield's at 90.6, and Caleb is at 90.1. All of those are perfectly fine ratings for a starting quarterback. As you move higher, you begin to encounter some of the league's truly elite performers from this past season. You've got Daniel Jones at 100, Jordan Love at 101.2, Josh Allen at 102.2, and Lamar Jackson at 103.8. Every one of those represents an MVP level of efficiency. And then there's the absolute top echelon, with Jared Goff at 105.5 and Matthew Stafford nearly at the very peak with 109.2. 2, a performance that got him first-team All-Pro recognition. But then there's Drake Maye, who completely distanced himself from the entire league, sitting at 113.5. 5 for his passer rating, the best in the NFL. He also topped the league charts in completion percentage at 72% and yards per attempt at 8.9. 9, plus EPA per play and QBR at 77.2. A 23-year-old in only his second year was the league leader in basically every single efficiency category. He is the only Patriots quarterback in history to complete over 70% of his passes for a full season, and his 8.9 yards per attempt shattered Tom Brady's franchise record of 8.6. 6, which was set in 2011. Drake Maye threw for 31 touchdowns against only 8 interceptions, and he accomplished all of this while steering the Patriots to 14 victories. This wasn't just a strong showing, it was a season of historic efficiency. Maye was named a second-team All-Pro and was selected for the Pro Bowl. He also became the first quarterback since Joe Burrow in 2021 to lead the league in both completion percentage and yards per attempt. The difference in efficiency between Maye and the rest of the league is just staggering. For a player in just his second year, this was the kind of output that wins you an MVP award. And speaking of the MVP, we have to talk about Matthew Stafford. At 37 years old, in his 17th season in the NFL, Stafford put together what could very well be the single greatest year of his entire storied career. And when you dive into the statistics, it becomes almost impossible to argue against it. This next chart displays every NFL quarterback and their passing touchdown totals for the 2025 season. The higher you are on this graph, the more touchdowns you threw. Down in the middle section, you'll see elite quarterbacks who had fantastic seasons. Dak Prescott tossed 30 touchdowns while throwing for over 4,500 yards. You have Sam Darnold, Trevor Lawrence, and Caleb Williams all clustered around that 25 to 35 touchdown mark with impressive yardage totals. Then you get to the next level. Drake Maye starts to separate himself with 31 touchdowns and over 4,300 yards in a phenomenal sophomore season that earned him second-team All-Pro honors. But then, way off by himself in that top left corner, you find Matthew Stafford. He threw for 46 touchdowns and over 4,700 yards, making him the only quarterback in the entire league to even break the 40 touchdown mark this season. Just let that reality set in for a moment. Jared Goff, who had a year worthy of the Pro Bowl, came in second with 34 touchdowns. That is a 12 touchdown chasm. The gap between Stafford and the next best quarterback is wider than the gap between second place and players who didn't even register on this list. Stafford dominated the league in passing yards by a margin of almost 150 yards. He put up an average of 277 passing yards every single game, the best in the NFL. And he managed all of this while throwing only 8 interceptions through the entire season. This wasn't merely a strong year for Stafford, it was a performance for the history books. He rightfully secured his first ever first-team All-Pro nod, was named to the Pro Bowl for the 3rd time, and is now the undeniable frontrunner for Most Valuable Player. The Los Angeles Rams cruised to a 12-5 record, all while putting up a league-best 30.5 points per game. And at the heart of that entire machine was Stafford. Bringing in Davante Adams provided him with yet another top-tier offensive threat. And let's not forget Puka Nacua, who had an absolutely monstrous season, pulling in 129 catches for 1,715 yards right alongside Davante. Matthew Stafford didn't just have an incredible season, he delivered a performance that we might never witness again. Now we need to address Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Everyone knows JSN has been playing out of his mind this year. He's established himself as Seattle's #1 option, become Sam Darnold's most trusted receiver, and proven to be one of the most reliable players across the league. But it's only when you map out his statistics that you can grasp how utterly ridiculous his 2025 season truly was. Down in the middle of the pack, you have legendary pass catchers who are having fantastic seasons of their own. Amon-Ra St. Brown posted a massive 117 receptions for 1,401 yards. Ja'Marr Chase snagged 125 passes for 1,412 yards. Travis Kelce was a force at tight end, dominating with 126 receptions for 1,239 yards. Then, up in that top left area, you have Puka Nacua, who we just talked about, with his 129 catches for 1,715 yards. A beastly season that locked him in as a first-team All-Pro. But floating in a tier all by himself above every single one of them is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. 119 receptions, 1,793 receiving yards, the sole receiver to surpass the 1,750 mark this year. That is the 8th highest receiving yard total for a single season in the entire history of the NFL. We're talking all-time legends. He's right behind Calvin Johnson, Cooper Kupp, Julio Jones, Jerry Rice, Antonio Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Tyreek Hill. JSN didn't just break Seattle's franchise record of 1,333 receiving yards, he completely obliterated it. And here's what makes this achievement even more unbelievable. He accomplished it on fewer than 170 targets. The only other receiver to approach those kinds of numbers with such a limited target share was the 2011 version of Calvin Johnson with 1,681 yards. JSN has locked up first-team All-Pro honors. He's headed to the Pro Bowl, and he did all of this in just his third year in the league, at only 23 years old. He didn't just put together a great season. He is in the middle of one of the most phenomenal receiving seasons the NFL has ever seen. This is an Offensive Player of the Year level explosion for Seattle's most brilliant young star. And speaking of stars, this next guy is no longer young, but he staged a comeback that I honestly believed was impossible. After being ravaged by injury after injury, I was convinced Christian McCaffrey's best days were behind him. But this season, he has been the absolute backbone of the 49ers. He has been their entire offense, shouldering the burden week in and week out. With the plague of injuries they've suffered and the utter vanishing act of Brandon Ayuk, they were desperate for someone to step up. And he answered the call. Look at this chart that lays out the total touches for NFL running backs during the 2025 season. Near the bottom, you'll see running backs who carried a respectable load. Devon Achane had 305, Chase Brown had 310. Saquon Barkley was given the ball 317 times. These are all strong, solid workloads for a primary back. As you move up the list, you find guys like Derrick Henry, who, at his age, miraculously handled 322 touches. James Cook, a leading rusher this year, had 342 touches. Bijan Robinson had 366. The next closest person, Jonathan Taylor, is way down at 369 touches. And then, in a completely different stratosphere, you have Christian McCaffrey. Are you kidding me? 413 touches! That's not just the most in the NFL, it's an absolute beatdown. He's got 44 more touches than the guy behind him. It's not even a fair fight. CMC was handed the ball an average of 24.3 times per game, the most in the entire league. He ran for 1,202 yards and 10 touchdowns, while also catching 102 passes for 924 yards and 7 more scores. And he accomplished all of this while the 49ers were crumbling with injuries all over their roster. He is the singular reason they managed to defeat the Eagles, putting up over 100 total yards in that victory as well. CMC has once again earned first-team All-Pro honors, he's made his 4th Pro Bowl, and at 29 years old, he remains the most unstoppable dual-threat weapon in all of football. This is just completely unheard of, and a chart like this truly puts into perspective how monumentally dominant he really was. You know, for all the criticism and excuses people make for the Bills, they possess a shockingly good pass defense. They've consistently suffocated opposing offenses, which was critical in helping the team fight its way to a 12-5 record. But it's only when you actually visualize their defensive stats on a chart that you begin to understand just how suffocating their pass defense truly was. You'll see solid teams like the Seahawks, who allow 193.9 yards, 9, the Patriots, who surrender 193.5, and the Eagles, who give up around 190 yards per game. Then you start to enter the more elite defensive tiers. The Texans only allowed 183.5 yards. The Chargers gave up just 180. And the Saints, remarkably, held opponents to a mere 179 passing yards per contest. Then you see the Browns, followed by another significant jump, and then you have the Vikings holding teams to an incredible 158. A mere 5 yards per contest. Down at the very bottom, in a world entirely their own, you find the Buffalo Bills, 156. 9 passing yards given up per game, the most suffocating pass defense across the entire National Football League. The Bills practically grounded opposing quarterbacks, holding them to a league-low 2,668 yards all year. They snatched 13 interceptions, tallied 36 sacks, and surrendered a measly 19 touchdowns through the air. Their pass defense was an absolute nightmare. This wasn't just competent, it was the work of a truly elite unit, and Buffalo rode that defense and James Cook straight into the playoffs. But speaking of tormenting quarterbacks, the Denver Broncos have been a relentless force this season, to put it mildly. They built their identity on pure disruption, constantly breathing down the necks of opposing signal callers and helping Denver storm its way to a 14-3 record and the #1 overall seed in the AFC. When you look toward the bottom of this list, you'll see a cluster of respectable teams sitting between 45 and 50 sacks. The Chargers landed at 45, the Seahawks hit 47, and the Rams matched that number. The Steelers, against all odds, managed to fight their way to 48. As you climb higher up the ranks, you enter the territory of elite units. The Lions posted 49. The Vikings also reached that very same number. The Browns amassed an incredible 53 sacks, with 23 coming from just one man. The Falcons soared even higher with 57. All of them are undeniably top-tier pass rushing forces. But then you notice a chasm, a massive, isolating gap. Enthroned at the very top, you find the Denver Broncos. 68 sacks, the highest total in the NFL by an astonishing margin. We're talking 11 more sacks than the second-place Falcons. 11. The Broncos weren't just the league leaders in sacks. They also topped the charts in pressures, quarterback hits, and quarterback knockdowns. They were absolutely merciless. Nick Bonito led the onslaught with 14 sacks. Jonathan Cooper piled on with 8 more. Zach Allen contributed another 7. And that Broncos defensive line was a complete demolition crew all season long. A performance so overpowering it earned Zach Allen a first-team All-Pro selection. The chasm between Denver's performance and everybody else's is almost unbelievable. They weren't simply the best pass rush in the game, they were competing in an entirely different stratosphere. And that overwhelming defense is the single biggest reason the Broncos locked down the top seed in the AFC. Now, I have to be completely transparent. I'm recording this part before the Texans and Steelers face off on Monday night. But everything in me says the Texans are going to handle their business. And if I turn out to be wrong, well, this entire segment will disappear forever anyway. But the truth is, the Texans have fielded a premier defense for years now, and this season only continued that brutal tradition. Up at the top of this chart are teams like the Saints, who gave up 5,100 yards this season. And the Chiefs weren't far behind, surrendering roughly 5,050 yards themselves. The Seahawks conceded an even 5,000, while the Bills managed to hold their opponents to just under 4,900. As you move down the list, you begin to encounter some truly high-caliber squads. The Chargers gave up 4,850 yards. The Browns allowed 4,800. Go down even further and you find the Broncos at a formidable 4,750. But sitting all alone at the very bottom are the Houston Texans. 4,713 yards allowed, making them the undisputed best total defense in all of professional football. The Texans held their opponents to a meager 277 yards a game, the lowest figure in the league. They surrendered just 17.4 points per game, the second best mark in the NFL. Their defense was suffocating from every possible angle, and the most impressive part is how they did it. The Texans accomplished this with an incredibly simple, execution-based philosophy. DeMeco Ryans and defensive coordinator Matt Burke ranked dead last in both blitz rate and simulated pressure rate. They had no need for complicated schemes or deceptive fronts. They just lined up across from you and physically dominated you. Will Anderson Jr. was a terror with 12 sacks, earning first-team All-Pro honors. Danielle Hunter brought in 15 sacks of his own, getting a second-team All-Pro nod. Derek Stingley Jr. completely erased receivers from the game, earning a Pro Bowl trip and another first-team All-Pro selection for the defense. That entire group was nothing short of elite. They are not simply one of the best defenses in the league right now. They have a legitimate argument for being one of the greatest defenses we have ever witnessed. And that overpowering force is precisely why the Texans are true Super Bowl contenders. So that's the story, the 8 statistical charts that should fundamentally alter how you view the remaining teams in these playoffs. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you're